Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. We're here to empower women who value their health, wealth, and the legacies they're creating. This podcast delves into a diverse range of subjects encompassing finance, law, mental and physical health, and beyond. Our commitment is to furnish you with invaluable insights, engaging expert interviews, and enlightening episodes that address your questions on wills, estate planning, and probate matters. Remember, this is your community, and we want to hear from you. Engage with us, ask questions, suggest topics. Let's build a dialogue. Reach out to us on social media or leave us a comment below. Your input fuels the conversations we have. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our upcoming content. We appreciate your support, and if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Your review helps amplify our reach and brings our content to more listeners. And now, on with the podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. I'm your host, attorney Elsa W. Smith. Today's episode is the 3 assumptions keeping women from estate planning. After nearly 3 decades of practicing law and years of focusing specifically on estate planning, I've learned something important. Women rarely put off estate planning because they don't care about their families. More often, we delay because of the stories we tell ourselves, the assumptions that sound reasonable, the ones that make us think, I'll get to that later. Maybe you believe your spouse's estate plan is enough. Maybe when you start thinking about estate planning, your first question is, how much is this going to cost? Or maybe you think, I don't own enough. I don't have enough money. I don't need an estate plan yet. And on the surface, those assumptions may seem harmless, but I've seen time and time again how they can keep women from taking action, sometimes until a death, a diagnosis, a divorce, or some other crisis forces the issue. So in today's episode, we're going to unpack these 3 assumptions and, more importantly, why they may not be serving you. Because estate planning isn't just about what happens when you die. It's about making sure you have a say in what happens to you, your family, and everything you've worked so hard to build. And by the end of the episode, I hope you'll see estate planning a little differently, not as something you can put off until someday, and certainly not as something reserved for people who have more than you do. It's a tool for protecting what matters, and it may be one of the most important gifts you can give yourself and the people you love. So let's get started. Have you ever heard a woman say, my husband already has an estate plan, so I don't need one? I've heard this from women of a certain generation, and honestly, I understand where it comes from. For many of these women, the husband was traditionally the one who handled the finances, met with the lawyer, managed the investments, and made the big financial decisions. So if he had an estate plan, there was an assumption that the family was protected. But here's the problem. Your husband's estate plan is not your estate plan. And there are 3 important reasons why every wife should have an estate plan of her own. First, your voice matters. Even in a strong marriage, you are still an individual with your own wishes, your own values, and your own priorities. Who do you want making financial decisions for you if you can't make them yourself? Who do you want making medical decisions for you? What happens to the property that belongs to you? And what about those personal belongings that may not have significant financial value, but have tremendous sentimental value? These are your decisions. An estate plan gives you the opportunity to make those decisions while you are able to, and to make sure the people you trust can carry them out if you can't. Second, life doesn't always unfold the way we expect. I've seen families make plans based on the assumption that one spouse will always be there to take care of the other. But illness happens, incapacity happens, and sometimes, despite our best hopes, a spouse dies unexpectedly. When that happens, you don't want your family trying to figure out what you would have wanted. Having your own estate planning documents, including a financial power of attorney and advance directive, helps ensure that someone you trust can step in and make decisions for you when you cannot. And third, estate planning is about empowerment. For generations, women were often left out of financial and legal conversations. Thankfully, that is changing. But empowerment means more than knowing what your spouse has in place. It means understanding what you have, what you want, and what you can control. Your estate plan gives you the opportunity to make informed decisions, protect the people you love, and preserve what you're building, whether that's your home, your business, your financial assets, your family, or simply the values you want to pass on. So let me leave you with this. An estate plan isn't something your spouse has for you. It's something you create for yourself and for the people who depend on you. So the first assumption we challenged was the idea that your spouse's estate plan is enough to protect you. But there's another assumption I hear just as often. And this one often comes up before we've even had a chance to talk about your family, your goals, or what you're actually trying to accomplish. It's the question, how much does this cost? Now, let me be clear. That's a fair question. We all have budgets. We all want to be good stewards of our money. And certainly, you should understand what you're paying for when you hire an attorney. But here's what I want you to think differently about. When cost is the first question, before we've talked about what you own, who you love, what you want to happen, and what you're trying to protect, you can end up focusing on the price of an estate plan instead of the value of what that estate plan is designed to protect. And that distinction matters. So let's talk about why starting with how much does it cost may not be the best place to start. If the first thing you want to know about estate planning is the cost, we need to have a different conversation. Estate planning isn't a commodity. It's not just paperwork you check off. It's the protection of your family, your legacy, and everything you've worked so hard to build. You know, I see this all the time. People want a quote before they even have a conversation. And I understand that. We all want to be mindful of our finances. But here's the truth. When you focus only on the cost, you don't get to fully see the value. And for many of you, you're the one holding things together. You're the only one that people rely on. So this isn't just about a number. You don't see the conflict that can be prevented. You don't see how you're protecting the people who depend on you. You don't see the control you maintain over your health, your finances, and your legacy. And you don't see what happens without a plan. That's why many estate planning attorneys don't provide quotes before a consultation, because a number by itself doesn't tell your story. It doesn't reflect what you've built or what you're trying to protect. Estate planning is personal, it's strategic, and it deserves more than a one-size-fits-all price tag. So instead of asking, how much does it cost? Ask yourself, what will it cost the people I love if I don't have a plan? Because this isn't just about money. It's about protecting everything you've worked so hard to build. So far, we've challenged two common assumptions. First, that you don't need your own estate plan if your spouse already has one. And second, that the first thing you should ask about estate planning is, how much does it cost? But there's another assumption I hear all the time, and it usually sounds very simple. I don't have much. Maybe you're thinking, I have my house, my retirement account, a little money in the bank. I'm not wealthy. Why do I need an estate plan? If you've ever thought that, I want you to listen closely to what we're about to discuss, because you may have far more to protect than you realize. And more importantly, estate planning isn't just about how much you have. It's about what happens to what you do have and who gets to make decisions when you can't. So let's talk about why I don't have much. Maybe one of the assumptions that's keeping you from putting an estate plan in place. Ladies, let's talk about something I hear all the time. I don't have a lot. I'm not sure if I even have an estate. Here's the truth. If you own anything at all, you do have an estate. Most of us grow up thinking that the word estate only applies to wealthy people. Mansions, luxury cars, investment portfolios, the whole nine yards. But legally speaking, an estate is simply everything that you own. Your home, your car, your bank accounts, your furniture, jewelry, family heirlooms, even the sentimental things, the items that carry your story, right? So ladies, your stuff is your estate. And what you own, no matter the dollar value, deserves a plan. Estate planning isn't about how much you have. It's about protecting the people you love, preserving what you've worked for, and keeping the courts from making decisions for you. When you don't have a plan, trust me, the state has a plan for you. It rarely reflects your wishes. So if you've hesitated because you think you don't have much, this is your reminder. Your life, your legacy, and your loved ones are worth planning for, no matter the size of your estate. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want you to notice something. On the surface, these three thoughts may seem completely unrelated. I don't need my own estate plan. How much does it cost? I don't have much. But underneath all three is a similar mindset. Estate planning is something I can worry about later when I'm older, later when I have more money, later when my life is even more complicated. But after nearly 3 decades of practicing law, I can tell you this: there is no perfect time to start planning. Estate planning isn't about checking a box because you've reached a certain age, gotten married, bought a house, or accumulated a certain amount of wealth. It's about making intentional decisions while you still have the ability to make them. It's about protecting the people who matter the most to you. And it's about making sure your voice continues to guide your family, even if there comes a time when you can't speak for yourself. The women I work with aren't simply putting documents in a folder. They're making decisions about their futures. They're taking control of what they can control. They're protecting their families from unnecessary confusion and conflict. And they're creating legacies with clarity and intention. That is what estate planning is really about. It's not about planning for some distant day when you're no longer here. It's about making sure that while you're here, your wishes are known, your loved ones are protected, and the things you've worked so hard to build are handled the way you want them to be. Today, we challenged 3 common ideas that can keep women from taking action on estate planning. My hope is that you leave this conversation with one new certainty. Your life, your voice, and the people you love are worth protecting. If today's episode challenged one of the assumptions you've been carrying, I hope you'll take the next step. You don't have to have everything figured out before you begin. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to wait until retirement. And you certainly don't have to wait until a crisis forces decisions that could have been made with clarity and intention. If you're a Maryland or District of Columbia resident and you're ready to learn what estate planning could look like for your unique circumstances, I invite you to schedule a complimentary 15-minute assessment call with a member of our team. You'll find the link in today's show notes. And if you found today's conversation helpful, I encourage you to share this episode with a sister, friend, daughter, or someone else you love. You never know whose life could be changed simply because you started the conversation. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Wills, Women, and Wealth podcast. Today's episode was the 3 assumptions that keep women from estate planning. Until next time, this is Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning and probate attorney. As always, stay informed, stay empowered, and take control of your legacy.